Performance. As a family doctor, one of the most important concepts I explain to patients is that female desire does not begin with touch. It begins with the brain. This often surprises people. Performance. So let me offer a hook that changes perspective immediately. You can stimulate the body perfectly. But if the mind is tense, distracted, or emotionally disconnected, arousal simply will not follow. Performance. This is not a matter of preference or attitude. It is rooted in female neurobiology. The brain is the command center for sexual response, and without its engagement, the body cannot fully participate. Performance. From a physiological standpoint, emotional and mental states directly control sexual readiness. When a woman feels stressed, rushed, or emotionally unsafe, her body releases cortisol and adrenaline. Hormones designed for survival, not intimacy. These chemicals reduce blood flow to intimate tissues, suppress lubrication, and dull sensitivity. In contrast, when she feels calm, appreciated, and mentally present, performance, and the brain releases oxytocin and dopamine, which promote connection, pleasure, and responsiveness. This is why foreplay that focuses only on physical stimulation often fails. Performance. While foreplay that begins with emotional presence is remarkably effective. Here is another critical hook many overlook for women. Desire is often responsive, not spontaneous. Performance. This means arousal grows after emotional engagement begins, not before. A woman does not need to feel desire first in order to enjoy intimacy. She needs the right mental environment to allow desire to emerge. Performance. When partners understand this, frustration decreases and intimacy becomes more natural rather than forced. Feeling seen and heard is a powerful neurological trigger. When a woman feels that her thoughts matter, performance, that her emotions are taken seriously, and that her partner is genuinely interested in her inner world, her brain interprets this as safety. Safety is the foundation of female arousal. Without it, the body stays guarded. Performance. And with it, the nervous system relaxes and allows pleasure to develop organically. This is why simple actions, attentive listening, empathy, and reassurance can be more arousing than any physical technique. Performance. Mental presence also means freedom from pressure. When a woman senses expectation or obligation, her mind shifts into performance mode. Performance mode activates anxiety, not desire. As a physician, performance. I often remind couples that desire cannot be demanded, it must be invited. When there is no pressure to respond a certain way or within a certain time, the brain remains open rather than defensive. Performance. This openness allows natural arousal pathways to function properly. Another important medical insight is that unresolved emotional stress competes directly with sexual desire. Fatigue, mental overload, unresolved conflict, performance, or feeling unappreciated can quietly shut down arousal long before intimacy begins. Addressing these factors outside the bedroom is not unrelated to intimacy. It is foreplay at the neurological level. Performance. When emotional burdens are reduced, the brain becomes more receptive to pleasure. Anticipation also plays a role in mental arousal. Thoughtful words, affectionate messages, perform their meaningful connection earlier in the day, prime the brain long before physical closeness occurs. This builds a sense of continuity rather than abrupt transition. The brain responds well to gradual emotional buildup, performance. And when this happens, the body follows with ease. Ultimately, when we say the brain is the primary sexual organ for women, we are acknowledging a truth grounded in medicine, not myth. Emotional connection, mental safety, performance, and genuine attentiveness activate the biological systems that make intimacy enjoyable and comfortable. When the mind feels secure and valued, the body responds not out of obligation, but out of natural readiness. Performance. This understanding alone transforms how intimacy is experienced because it respects how women are biologically designed to respond rather than asking them to override their own physiology. As a family doctor, performance. I often explain that emotional connection is not a romantic extra, it is a biological requirement for female arousal. Here is a hook that immediately shifts understanding when emotional connection is missing. Performance. The body interprets intimacy as unsafe, even if the relationship itself is loving. This response is automatic, not intentional. A woman cannot simply decide to feel desire if her emotional needs are unmet. Performance. Because her nervous system is designed to protect her first and respond to pleasure second. From a medical perspective, emotional connection directly influences hormone release. When a woman feels emotionally close, understood, performance, and valued, her brain increases the release of oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone. Oxytocin promotes relaxation, trust, and receptivity, all of which are necessary for sexual responsiveness. Performance. Without this hormonal environment, physical stimulation often feels neutral or even uncomfortable. This is why emotional closeness consistently outperforms technique when it comes to female pleasure. Performance. Another important hook many couples miss is this: emotional neglect does not always look dramatic. It can be subtle, being distracted during conversations, dismissing feelings, or failing to acknowledge daily stress. Over time, performance. These small disconnections accumulate and quietly shut down desire. The brain keeps score of emotional safety. When a woman feels emotionally invisible, her body does not open easily. Performance. No matter how much physical attraction exists, feeling emotionally connected means feeling emotionally prioritized. When a woman senses that her presence matters, that her experiences are taken seriously, performance, and that her emotional world is respected, her nervous system relaxes. Relaxation is not passive, it is an active biological state that allows blow, sensitivity, and responsiveness to increase. Performance. This is why emotional reassurance can sometimes ignite desire more effectively than physical touch. Communication plays a central role in this process. Open, calm, and respectful communication signals emotional availability. Performance. When a woman can express herself without fear of being judged, corrected, or minimized, her brain registers safety. Safety is the gateway to desire. In clinical terms, emotional validation reduces anxiety-related inhibition, performance, allowing arousal pathways to function normally. Emotional connection also reduces performance pressure. When intimacy is rooted in closeness rather than expectation, a woman does not feel evaluated. Evaluation activates self-consciousness, which directly suppresses arousal. Connection, on the other hand, allows her to stay present in her body rather than retreat into her thoughts. Presence is where pleasure lives. However, another overlooked factor is consistency. Emotional connection is not created in one moment. It is built through repeated experiences of reliability, kindness, and attentiveness. Performance. When a woman knows that emotional support is steady, not only offered when intimacy is desired, her body learns to associate closeness with comfort rather than obligation. This conditioning is powerful and long-lasting. Performance. Emotional intimacy also allows anticipation to develop naturally. When a woman feels emotionally close throughout the day, through thoughtful words, shared moments, or genuine interest, performance, her brain begins preparing for intimacy long before physical contact occurs. This gradual buildup aligns with female arousal patterns, which respond best to continuity rather than sudden transitions. From a physician's viewpoint, emotional connection is one of the most underappreciated aspects of sexual health. It affects hormone balance, nervous system regulation, and emotional safety, performance, all of which determine how the body responds to intimacy. When emotional connection is present, desire does not need to be forced or negotiated. It arises as a natural extension of feeling valued, secure, and emotionally close. Performance. Ultimately, emotional connection works as foreplay because it speaks directly to the systems that control female desire. It lowers stress, increases trust, and allows the brain to shift from protection to pleasure. Performance. When a woman feels emotionally connected, her body is no longer guarded, it is receptive. And when receptivity is present, intimacy flows not as a performance, but as a shared performance, comfortable experience grounded in genuine closeness. As a family doctor, I often remind couples of a medical truth that challenges modern expectations. Time and patience are not preferences in female intimacy. Performance. They are physiological requirements. Here is a hook that immediately reframes the issue. When a woman is rushed, her body does not catch up. It shuts down. This response is not emotional resistance or lack of interest. Performance. It is the body following its natural biological timeline. Female arousal is a gradual process, and when that process is interrupted, the body protects itself rather than opening to pleasure. From a physiological standpoint, performance. Arousal involves increased blood flow to intimate tissues, heightened nerve sensitivity, and natural lubrication. These changes do not occur instantly. Performance. They develop progressively as the nervous system moves from alert mode into a relaxed, receptive state. If this transition is rushed, the body does not have enough time to respond fully, which can lead to discomfort. Performance. Reduced sensation or emotional disengagement. This is why patience is not simply kind, it is medically necessary. Another important hook many people overlook is this performance. The absence of patience is often interpreted by the female nervous system as emotional unsafety. When intimacy feels hurried, the brain perceives pressure, and pressure activates stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Performance. These hormones restrict blood flow and dull sensitivity, directly interfering with arousal. In contrast, a slow, unhurried pace allows stress hormones to fall and pleasure hormones to rise. Performance. The body cannot feel relaxed and rushed at the same time. Women's bodies are designed to respond to gradual buildup, not abrupt transitions. Emotional closeness, gentle touch, performance, and consistent reassurance allow the nervous system to adjust step by step. When this adjustment is respected, arousal becomes comfortable and natural rather than forced. When it is ignored, the body often resists. Performance. Even when the emotional desire for closeness is present, patience also communicates respect, which has a direct biological effect. Feeling respected lowers anxiety and increases trust. Performance, both of which are essential for sexual responsiveness. When a woman senses that her comfort matters more than a timeline or outcome, her body relaxes. Relaxation allows muscles to soften, circulation to increase, performance, and sensitivity to heighten. These are not abstract ideas, they are measurable physiological responses. Another clinical insight is that female arousal is not linear. It does not follow a predictable, clock-based progression. Performance. Some days it takes longer, depending on stress levels, fatigue, hormonal fluctuations, or emotional load. Expecting consistency ignores the reality of female biology. Performance. Patience allows space for these natural variations without turning them into pressure or disappointment. Rushing also disrupts mental presence. When intimacy moves too quickly, performance. A woman's mind may remain occupied with daily stress, unresolved thoughts, or self-consciousness. Time allows the mind to settle into the body. Presence is essential because pleasure requires awareness. Without time, awareness cannot fully shift from thinking to feeling. From a doctor's perspective, performance. Many complaints of discomfort or lack of enjoyment during intimacy are not due to physical dysfunction, but due to insufficient time for arousal. Performance. The body is signaling that it has not been given the conditions it needs to respond. When time is respected, many of these concerns resolve naturally without medication or intervention. Patience also creates emotional safety. Performance. When there is no rush, there is no fear of disappointing someone or needing to perform. This freedom removes mental barriers that suppress desire. Performance. Desire grows best in an environment where nothing is demanded and everything is allowed to unfold naturally. Ultimately, time and patience align intimacy with how the female body is designed to function. Performance. They allow the nervous system to relax, hormones to balance, and physical readiness to develop fully. When intimacy is unhurried, the body does not need to defend itself. It can respond with comfort and openness. Performance. This is why patience is not passive, it is active care for female sexual health. As a family doctor, I often see confusion around why desire fades even in loving relationships. And one powerful hook I share is this: performance. The human body cannot feel desire and pressure at the same time. For women especially, pressure, whether spoken or unspoken, signals the nervous system to protect rather than to open. Performance. This response is not emotional weakness or lack of attraction. It is biology doing exactly what it was designed to do. When pressure enters intimacy, safety leaves, and without safety, desire cannot survive. Performance. Pressure can take many subtle forms. It may appear as expectation, impatience, comparison, or even well-meaning comments that create a sense of obligation. The female nervous system is highly sensitive to these cues. When a woman feels that intimacy is required, expected, or evaluated, her brain shifts into alert mode. This activates stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline, performance, which are useful in emergencies but harmful to sexual responsiveness. These hormones reduce blood flow, increase muscle tension, and suppress the body's ability to experience pleasure. Performance. Here is an important hook many couples overlook: pressure does not need to be verbal to be powerful. Silence, disappointment, mood changes, or withdrawal can communicate just as much expectation as words. Performance. The body responds to what it senses, not what is intended. Even when a partner believes they are being patient, a woman may still perceive pressure if her emotional safety feels fragile. Once that perception is present, performance. The body closes often before the mind fully understands, why safety, on the other hand, sends the opposite signal. Safety tells the nervous system that there is no risk, no demand, and no consequence for responding or not responding. When a woman feels safe, her body shifts out of defense mode and into connection mode. This shift allows oxytocin, the hormone of trust and bonding, to rise. Oxytocin supports relaxation, emotional closeness, performance, and receptivity, all of which are essential for healthy desire. Feeling safe also means feeling free, freedom to say no without guilt, freedom to take time without explanation, freedom to change one's mind. Performance. From a medical perspective, this freedom lowers anxiety and increases emotional regulation. Anxiety and desire cannot coexist comfortably. When anxiety is reduced, performance. Desire has space to emerge naturally rather than being forced into existence. Another clinical insight is that pressure often creates self-monitoring. When a woman feels evaluated, performance, she begins to watch herself instead of experiencing herself. Her attention moves away from bodily sensation and toward thoughts such as whether she is responding correctly or quickly enough. Performance. This mental distance interrupts the brain-body connection required for arousal. Safety restores presence. When a woman feels safe, she can stay in her body rather than retreat into her thoughts. Performance. Safety is built through consistency, not intensity. Gentle reassurance, calm responses, and emotional steadiness teach the nervous system that closeness is reliable and non-threatening. Over time, performance. This consistency retrains the body to associate intimacy with comfort rather than stress. This is not something that happens in a single moment. It develops through repeated experiences of respect and emotional care. Performance. As a physician, I also see how pressure often increases when intimacy becomes inconsistent. Ironically, this makes the situation worse. The more pressure is applied, the more the nervous system resists. Performance. The solution is not more effort, but more safety. When pressure is removed, the body often recovers its natural responsiveness without additional intervention. Safety also includes emotional safety outside of intimate moments. Performance. When a woman feels emotionally secure in daily life, respected, supported, and understood, her baseline stress level is lower. This makes it easier for her body to respond during intimacy. Performance. Emotional safety is not separate from physical intimacy. It is its foundation. Ultimately, desire flourishes where safety is unquestioned. When there is no fear of disappointing, no sense of obligation, performance, and no pressure to perform, the female body is free to respond as it is designed to. In that freedom, desire becomes not something to be demanded, but something that arises naturally from trust, comfort, performance, and emotional security. As a family doctor, I often emphasize a point that many people underestimate, and here is a hook that usually stops them and makes them think: performance. The way a woman is touched when intimacy is not expected often matters more than how she is touched when it is. Performance. Non-sexual affection plays a powerful and medically relevant role in female desire because it conditions the nervous system long before intimacy ever begins. This is not about romance alone. Performance. It is about how the body learns to associate closeness with safety instead of obligation. From a physiological perspective, the nervous system is constantly learning from repeated experiences. Performance. When physical touch only appears as a prelude to sex, the body can begin to associate touch with expectation and pressure. Over time, this creates subtle tension. In contrast, affectionate touch that has no agenda, performance, such as holding hands, gentle hugs, a reassuring hand on the back, teaches the nervous system that closeness is safe, comforting, and predictable. Safety is the prerequisite for desire. Performance. Here is an important hook many people miss. The body does not distinguish between emotional and physical safety. When non-sexual affection is consistent, the brain releases oxytocin, the hormone associated with bonding and trust. Oxytocin lowers stress responses, reduces anxiety, and promotes emotional closeness. Performance. This hormonal environment supports sexual responsiveness indirectly by keeping the nervous system calm and receptive. Without this baseline calm, arousal often feels effortful or forced. Performance. Non-sexual affection also builds trust over time. Trust is not created during intimate moments alone. It is reinforced through everyday interactions. When a woman experiences affection without expectation, performance, she learns that closeness does not automatically lead to demand. This reduces subconscious guarding. Guarding is a protective response where the body remains slightly tense, even if the mind wants connection. Removing the need for guarding allows the body to relax more easily when intimacy does occur. Another clinical insight is that non-sexual affection helps regulate emotional stress. Daily stress, mental fatigue, performance, and emotional overload are common inhibitors of desire. Simple affectionate gestures act as nervous system regulation tools. They signal care, presence, and support, helping to bring stress levels down. And lower stress creates a more favorable internal environment for desire to emerge naturally rather than being suppressed. Non-sexual affection also reinforces emotional closeness, which is a key driver of female arousal. Feeling emotionally connected increases a woman's sense of being valued beyond physical intimacy. This emotional security reduces performance anxiety and self-consciousness, allowing her to remain present in her body. Performance. Presence is essential for pleasure. When the mind feels safe, it can shift attention from evaluation to sensation. There is also a conditioning effect at work. Performance. When affectionate touch is regularly experienced without sexual expectation, the body begins to anticipate comfort rather than demand. This anticipation carries over into intimate moments. Instead of bracing, the body leans in. Perform. Instead of resisting, it responds. This conditioning is gradual but powerful, and it explains why relationships with consistent affection often experience more natural intimacy over time. As a physician, performance. I often see couples focus heavily on what happens in the bedroom while neglecting what happens outside of it. In reality, intimacy is shaped throughout the day. A kind touch, a gentle embrace, performance, or simple physical closeness builds a sense of connection that accumulates. When intimacy eventually arises, it feels like a continuation rather than a sudden shift. Performance. Non-sexual affection also communicates emotional availability. It signals that care and closeness are not dependent on sexual outcomes. This removes emotional pressure, which is one of the most common barriers to female desire. Performance. And when pressure of a system remains open rather than defensive. Ultimately, non-sexual affection works because it aligns with how the female nervous system forms trust and openness. It lowers stress, it builds emotional safety, and conditions the body to associate touch with comfort. When closeness feels safe and reliable, desire does not need to be coaxed. It arises naturally as an extension of emotional and physical security. As a family doctor, I often explain that communication is one of the most powerful yet underestimated drivers of female sexual response, performance. And here is a hook that usually changes how people listen. The body responds not to what is assumed, but to what is understood. Communication is not simply exchanging words. It is the process by which emotional safety, trust, performance, and responsiveness are created. Without clear, respectful communication, even the most affectionate relationship can experience disconnect at the level of desire. From a medical standpoint, performance. Open communication reduces uncertainty, and uncertainty is a major source of anxiety. Anxiety activates the stress response, which directly interferes with arousal. When a woman feels unsure about expectations, boundaries, performance, or emotional reactions, her nervous system remains slightly guarded. This guarding may be subtle, but it is enough to block full relaxation. Clear, calm communication reassures the brain that there is no threat, performance, no misinterpretation, and no hidden demand. Here is a critical hook many couples overlook. Asking and listening can be more stimulating than guessing and assuming. Performance. When a woman feels that her preferences matter and that her voice is welcomed, her sense of agency increases. Agency reduces vulnerability, related stress, and enhances comfort. In physiological terms, This lowers cortisol and allows oxytocin to rise, creating an internal environment that supports connection and responsiveness. Communication also allows boundaries to be respected, and boundary respect is essential for desire, performance. When boundaries are unclear or ignored, the body learns to stay alert. When boundaries are honored without resistance or disappointment, the body learns that it is safe to relax. This safety is not abstract performance. It is experienced as reduced muscle tension, calmer breathing, and increased openness to sensation. Respectful communication teaches the nervous system that closeness does not come at the cost of personal comfort. Performance. Another important aspect is tone. Communication that is gentle, patient, and non-judgmental signals emotional availability. Harshness, sarcasm, or defensiveness, even when unintentional, performance, can quickly shift the nervous system into protection mode. The body reacts to tone faster than logic. A calm, reassuring tone communicates care and presence, both of which are necessary for intimacy to feel safe. Performance. Communication also reduces performance pressure. When expectations are openly discussed and there is reassurance that outcomes are not being measured, a woman can remain present in her body instead of monitoring herself. Performance. Self-monitoring disrupts pleasure because attention moves away from sensation and toward evaluation. Open dialogue removes the need for guessing, which allows the mind to settle and the body to respond more freely. Performance. As a physician, I often see how unspoken assumptions create emotional distance. One partner assumes the other knows what they want or need, while the other feels misunderstood or unseen. Performance. This gap quietly erodes emotional closeness. Communication bridges that gap. When a woman feels genuinely understood, her emotional security increases. Performance. Emotional security directly supports sexual responsiveness by reducing subconscious resistance. Another clinical insight is that communication strengthens trust over time. Performance trust is built when words align with actions and when conversations feel safe rather than risky. When a woman knows she can express discomfort, preference, or hesitation without negative consequences, her nervous system remains open. Openness is essential for desire. Fear of reaction, even subtle fear, suppresses arousal. Communication also supports anticipation. Thoughtful words, expressions of appreciation, performance. An emotional check-ins throughout the day prepare the mind for closeness later. This mental priming aligns with female arousal patterns, which respond well to gradual emotional buildup. When communication is consistent, performance. Intimacy feels like a continuation of connection rather than a sudden demand. Ultimately, communication works as a powerful form of stimulation because it speaks directly to the systems that regulate safety, trust, presence. It lowers anxiety, clarifies intention, and reinforces respect. When communication is open and compassionate, the female body does not need to protect itself. It is free to respond naturally, comfortably, and fully.